Hey, I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. I'm not sure how you found us, but I want to let you know that we have made it as easy as possible for you to find, follow, and share this podcast with as many people as possible. All you have to do is type in Community Solutions, and we're in the Apple iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, we're on Spotify, and as usual, you can find it out on YouTube or by going directly to podbabble.com, the great podcast network that we're part of. So go out there and go nuts, because the more that you share this information, the greater opportunity that you have to change your community. So thank you again for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
You're a rich girl. You've gone too far. Because you know it don't matter anyway. You can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on the old man's money. This is the Community Solutions Podcast.
I think I heard the Kennedys singing that song once. Was that true?
Yeah, that could be.
Now, I've heard that song. Who sings it?
Hall & Oates.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah. Easy one today. Gave you a softball since softball season's in full swing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good song.
Mm-hmm.
Not a great topic that we're going to get into.
Oh, no, not at all.
It is appropriate, though, for the topic today, the old man's money.
Yes.
There's a lot of old man's money being doled out around the world, I guess we should say. By the way, Andrew Richter,
Jason Bradley,
Community Solutions Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've gotten to introduce us in the.
You did a fine job.
As always, I interrupt when you're at the end of your song starting.
I saw your eyes light up. It was like, I know that.
Yeah.
So
it was like the third
by all
one,
means, you were excited like Christmas time. It was good. I don't want to go back to Christmas. We had a long enough winter. All right. Things have kind of melted. Our brains have thawed. We're thinking clearer. We're starting to get into the political process a little bit. It's a big year, 2018. We've got a ton of stuff here in Minnesota, from the U.S. Senate all the way down to school boards and city councils. And you and I have been going around the state a little bit and talking to people, and it's just amazing. I mean, that all of this energy is focused on, like, Congressional District 8, Congressional District 1, the governor's race, not even so much at, like, state Senate levels at this point, but
state Senate's not up, so that's probably
but I mean the
US
the House districts within the Senate districts, down at the state level. Sorry, I should have been clearer. But
just to I correct the record.
Yeah. No, you are right. Senate is not up this year, but within Senate districts we have House district
2
races
reps in each one.
Yeah. But even less so, are we hearing about county races, local races within cities and school districts? But you and I are hearing little things pop up here and there in some cities that they say they're raring to get going, which is good, because a lot of people don't come out till June, which is much too late to you can still win by coming out in June. I'm not dissuading you from doing that. It's always a good time to stand up, but I'm telling you that the clock is ticking for you to be able to put a good race together. But there are going to be, I believe, some good races out there, just from us kind of getting around and talking to people. So I'm excited about that.
Always are. No doubt about it.
And it's important that we do this. We talk about a farm team across the state, 20,000 people, so that we can govern in a way that is consistent with our beliefs. And that's important, because the people that are governing it at the local level right now are not often having our best interests at heart. They have special interests coming to their staff members, pitching ideas. They get these things at workshops. They get them all over the place, bring them back to the city, try to push the city council and advisory commissions into implementing them. And they're well-funded things. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. I mean, whether it's Tobacco 21, whether it's Complete Streets, whether it's ranked choice voting, the opposition is well-funded.
Right, and it leads you to wonder where, this is kind of our topic of today,
right?
Where the hell did they get their money?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they seem like they have all the money in the world. I mean,
they've got paid staff people. They've got research departments. Lobbyists. Where are these coalitions getting this from? And it is, and you'd be surprised at, maybe you wouldn't be. I think I was initially, because I kept thinking, people who've made their money in the private sector would be capitalists,
right?
Or things like that, or those people would understand that the best way to fight something is not to make everybody a ward of the state.
Right. Well, and that's the big lie. I mean, for a long time, liberals, I believe, have been able to, and not all of them, there's obviously poor liberals, but just like there are poor conservatives. But the biggest
the
lie,
last election proved it. Look at the constituency that elected Trump.
Yeah.
It wasn't wealthy people.
No.
It was people without a college degree working at blue-collar jobs, which has been a Democratic. President Reagan tapped into that. President George W. tapped into that. I think Trump kind of revitalized that.
Right.
That they're not just walking around blindly supporting Democrats. It's Republicans have had that opportunity for a long time. But you're right. The more yuppie people have, it's kind of flipped to what the public perception really is.
I mean, you take a drive through, and I'm sorry if this is where you live, but like Eastern Golden Valley or Edina, I mean, they're not super conservative areas anymore, but they still have a ton of money.
Right. I mean, having a ton of money really has no effect on your political beliefs.
No, but they'd like you to believe that.
Right. Look at athletes and actors and people like that are overwhelmingly left-wing, and they're the richest people around. And even CEOs. I mean, we'll get into this in a little bit, but Peter Lewis, the CEO of Progressive Insurance, is a huge liberal guy. Peter Angelos, the guy who owns the Baltimore Orioles, is a big left-wing philanthropist. I mean, it is a myth out there that rich people give their money to conservatives or conservative causes.
Right.
I mean, that's such garbage.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, with a lot of these groups, and we'll get into some of them specifically, but a lot of these groups, they're tax havens for people. I mean, it's like you donate and you can take it off on your taxes, and they're prepared to receive large sums of money. They do investing, they do all this stuff, and I don't think that there's a very good record of what happens with that money. They make it sound really good what they do. I think there's a lot of people that put money there that would be shocked what actually happens with their money. There are some obviously who know exactly what their money does, but I think there are a lot of there are a lot of people who would be shocked and probably would stop investing in these places.
Right. And let me just explain this. We're talking largely about large foundations that quote give grant money or prop up certain things, and foundations have and other things too. PACs kind of fit in this mold a little bit. Other 527 groups fit in this mold somewhat.
Right.
They all sort of do the same things. And it all really stems from there's a limit on what you can give a candidate if they're running for office. Depending on the office, there's a limit. There's a limit on I call it a limit on your free speech, is what I call it. But, you have the right to petition government, and if you put a dollar amount on that, then you're squelching someone's freedom of speech.
Right.
Now, the rich don't just say, okay, well, I'll give this candidate $500 because I can't give them $5 million.
Right.
So what do? They take the other $4,900,000 something, and they put it somewhere else. And the rise of this has really stemmed from campaign finance laws. That's largely it's an unintended consequence of putting limits on what you can give a candidate, putting limits on what you give a party through what we used to call soft money, which is now banned. You can't do that anymore. Back to the McCain-Feingold legislation, back whenever that happened. I can't remember the year, but it doesn't matter. So the money has gone elsewhere. If you ask me, there's less accountability, there's not less money in politics,
right?
Which is what the proponents of that claim.
Yeah.
All you've done is take the parties and the candidates out of it, and now you have this money going into these monsters. And you mentioned I want to start with this because you mentioned pulling back money. I'm actually somebody who pulled back money. I used to give money to what's called the Susan Komen Fund. Susan Komen is somebody who died of breast cancer at a very young age. She was maybe 35 years old. I mean, I might be wrong on that, but her sister started this fund, and they've basically, they're the ones who came up with pink as the color for breast. They basically redefined that. You think of pink, you think of breast cancer.
Absolutely.
Now, I actually researched what they spend their money on. And I quit giving them, and I will never give them money again.
Wow, you're such a hateful individual.
I mean, if they give the money, they use finding a cure for breast cancer as the basis for receiving donations. If you look at where their money goes, it's no wonder we've never gotten a cure for breast cancer. Because their money isn't going towards that. Even the money they claim...
But it's a race for the cure, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, they're losing it then. I mean, they're not running very fast. This is a company with almost $400 million in total assets. Yet only 21% of that money is actually spent on research. Of that 21%... Okay, Jay, listen to this.
Yes.
I'm going to butterbeliever.com, which got their stuff from, they have a source here. I'll find it in a second.
Okay.
But, from where they got this information from. But of the 21% that they have on research, 15% is spent on early detection. Now, you tell me, Jay, how is early detection finding a cure? Yeah, finding a cure. You're spending money on early. Not that that's a bad thing.
Right.
But that's not going to cure cancer.
Yeah.
22% spent on treatment. Well, again, treatment is after the fact, not before the fact. So they can't even claim that all that money is being spent on, quote, finding a cure. I would take it a step further.
Okay.
Where is this? Give me 1 second here. But their CEOs, their board of directors, all make well into the six figures. Some over $400,000. And that's a lot to run a charity where people are giving money.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to have that in the private sector, but to have that in the charities, I think, is really misleading to put that kind of money out there to run, quote, a charity. 39% of their money is, quote, spent on public health education. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think that is, Jay? Public health education.
Oh, it's public health education. It's how to check for cancer, and the self-check things, like you can hang them in the shower, or
isn't that a lot to spend
TV
on that?
TV commercials and yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, it's advertising for themselves.
Yeah,
is part of what that is. I would also add that they own stock. This is a foundation that owns stock.
Yeah.
General Electric, they own stock and General Electric owns these mammogram machines that they're giving early screenings to. So they also own stock in pharmaceutical companies as well. So they're sort of double dipping, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of, I would say, a little misleading at best. By the way, the source is www.5.komen.org that you can find these numbers. So, I kind of got to thinking they have a relationship with Planned Parenthood.
Yes,
I don't know if they're abortion supporters.
Yeah,
which is another reason I refuse to give money to them. But they're not out. And my point is that they are not out front about that.
No.
They make it sound like all of your money is going to cure breast cancer, when most of it is going towards what they call women's health. And they have a very broad definition of what that is exactly.
Yeah, well, in 2013, Komen grants were awarded for breast cancer screening to Planned Parenthood for $677,287, as well as grants totaling $121,351 for education and $9,831 for treatment. So the total award to Planned Parenthood was $808,469. But from what I've heard, Planned Parenthood doesn't do a lot of screening. They refer people places.
Again, can I point out something?
But education for what? Does it have to be, and treatment for what? Does it spell it out? It doesn't here in the article.
But again, their pitch is we are curing cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's big difference between. There's plenty of places to go for early treatment. There's plenty of health insurance covers that cover that.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a charity do this.
Right.
But the guise is that they're researching for a cure, when the truth is that's a low percentage of what they spend their money on. And I just thought they were deceptive, and I just chose that I'm not giving money to them anymore. That's too bad. Because I lost an aunt due to breast cancer. I know people who've lost people to that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame that a charity would take that money and spend it on something other than that. Now, there is one, you could make the case, first off, if they were open and honest about it, it'd be different. Say, look, we're doing cancer research and we're doing early screening, we're doing testing, we're doing,
Then you know what you're giving your money to.
Yeah, and I think but I think for a long, long time, they've partnered with people like the NFL, and they've partnered with a lot of powerful things, and I don't think people really knew where all this was going.
Yeah.
So you think that's bad? Okay, and that's just me. I just came up with that as just me personally. I'm chose not to spend any on that anymore.
And this is a low-level charity. This is people of all economic levels give to this organization.
That is one thing. They take a lot of $20, $50, $100 donations. Yep. This is not one rich person bankrolling this.
Right.
Makes it a little different.
But you see how much money they give to a group like Planned Parenthood alone, based on all of those 10s, 20s, 50s that roll in. Now, imagine that you have a group that is accepting donations of millions of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, whatever, from people that it's a more exclusive club. Obviously, your actors, your athletes, your politicians, businessmen, yes, businesswomen.
And we've got those, don't we?
Yeah.
We got one right here in the Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
The McKnight Foundation.
Yes, we do.
Very well known.
Most of you would say, oh, they're the ones that keep Big Bird on the air. Well,
that might have been what they originally did.
Yes. They do give to PBS quite a bit, yeah. They also do a number of other things with far more money. Looking at the McKnight Foundation, they give to things like the arts and education. They give it internationally. They're looking at Midwest climate and energy. They're giving to other foundations. They give towards the Mississippi River, neuroscience, and different issues around the region. But a lot of it has to do with green energy. A lot of it has to do with stopping climate change. A lot of it has to do with things like that.
They're big into low carbon things too. Mm-hmm. They're part of the war on cars.
Yeah.
They're a big philanthropy. By the way, it was founded by William McKnight, who is the founder of 3M. Mm-hmm. course, he passed away a long, long time ago, so I don't know.
Right.
Obviously, he's not. Maybe it's like another one we'll talk about in a little bit, where the original intent of this is he passed away in 1978. So it's been a long time since he's been the one, giving money to anything. But they're largely in the smart growth business. The big into green step here, which we've talked about in Minnesota. If you look at green step, and we'll talk a little bit about some of where this is going, but they are probably the largest one here in Minnesota that I can think of that does these types of things. And again, they're going into similar, I would argue, left-wing causes, feel-good things, and look nice.
Yeah.
But they have tremendous effect on our way of life, because they're promoting the same things we keep talking about, whether that's the war on cars, whether it's complete streets, whether it's roundabouts, whether it's high-density housing, whether it's walkability. The people that are lobbying for that are being bankrolled in Minnesota a lot by the McKnight Foundation.
Yeah, they are. I mean, you see them pop up everywhere, and I know they're involved with a lot of what goes on here in Minnesota, and like you said, with especially with a lot of those green initiatives.
Well, and again, it's all about getting around. They're using money to influence. They're just not directly doing it.
Right.
Like I said, we have a worse system now than we've ever had. Instead of I've told the story before. President Reagan, when he lost to Gerald Ford in 1976 and then ran in 1980, he was financed by about 5 millionaires. Okay?
Yes.
Now, today, President Reagan would have to run around and get $50 donations from 1 million people and then have some side group that he can't control, some PAC be created that he can't talk to, he can't run, he can't have anything to do with, rise up and finance his causes from afar.
Right.
I mean, that's what's Barack Obama. That's what happened with him.
A better Minnesota.
Yes, Mark Dayton. Same thing happened. Even Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney had his PAC too. That was created by his supporters, not by him, and tried to get him elected. So there's less accountability. There's less, and these things stay together. They get renamed as something different. You think Alliance for a Better Minnesota is going to end when Mark Dayton's governorship ends?
No.
Of course not. No. They've got their sugar daddies. They're going to go on to independently run ads that we can't control. And they can say whatever they want to, because with a candidate, there's no, hello, I'm John McCain and I approve this message. There's nothing like that with it. So these things are only going to get worse. They're only going to get bigger. If anything, they'll be running the world by then. Running the world. Because a lot of these things, one world government is ultimately their goal.
Yeah, and I know that it gets even worse than this. I mean, if you look at some of the grants, right now talking about McKnight, in 2017, for just their Midwest climate and energy portion of their foundation.
Now, by Midwest, are we just talking the 5-state region here, or do you know where that exactly is going?
Not really. Okay. But it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, ultimately it doesn't.
Listen to this. So last year, they awarded 70 grants worth $15 million. 70 worth $15 million. Is that grant money open for anybody who's working in climate and energy in the Midwest? No. They use a closed application process. So proposals for funding are accepted only from organizations that are invited to apply. So they're already picking their winners.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
They're already picking their winners.
So I guess we can't apply.
You and I can't apply.
We could do a green energy podcast, Upper Midwest green energy podcast,
and we still won't get it
for $15 million. I'll change for $15 million.
Yeah,
give me a bike lane for $15 million, man.
Just one, though. Just one. It's got to be up and down Highway 2 in between Grand Rapids and Proctor.
Well, here's my thing.
Yeah.
Would they support my I hate roundabouts support group that I want to. You and I had a bad experience the other day. We won't say where or anything.
Oh boy,
we had a pretty rough experience on roundabouts this week.
It was like they had 3 of them almost in a row. It was like a loop-de-loop.
One didn't go one direction.
Right.
It was like somebody like Stevie Wonder built it or something. He and Roy Orbison got together and built a roundabout.
Right.
That's how bad it was.
Right.
See, they can't see. I'm making fun of that there for you.
Yeah.
For all you
So
people who don't get it.
I do want to mention some of the significant groups that got some of this grant money. They're big Midwestern heavy hitters, like the Advanced Energy Economic Institute based out of Washington, D.C., or the Blue Green Alliance Foundation. That one actually is from Minneapolis.
Oh, is that the blue and green light rail?
They have a website. I didn't check that out.
I don't care to know that bad.
Well, they seem to get money all the time. They've gotten $150,000 for general operating support. Oh, that did not.
General operating? So that must be to pay somebody's salary.
Yeah. Research, education, and solutions. That's what they tout. Hell
does that mean?
They got $80,000 this year already to support community stakeholders in developing economic transition plans for communities facing coal plant closure.
How about we just keep the coal plant open?
Yep. They got $80,000 last
cheaper?
year for the same thing.
Why doesn't the McKnight Foundation just give $80,000 to the coal company?
But it gets better. I mean, there are plenty more.
Then I don't have to transition the city.
Business Council for Sustainable Energy out of Washington, D.C.
That doesn't sound very Midwest to me, Jay.
Center for Climate Strategies out of Washington, D.C.
So they're think tanks.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Cirrus out of Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston,
yeah.
They put it in their shopping cart?
Yep, that's what they do. Clean Energy States Alliance out of Montpelier, Vermont.
Oh.
That's Midwest.
Bernie Sanders land.
Yeah. So, lots of places in Washington, D.C., California. There are some in the Midwest as well. I mean, obviously, you have things in Michigan, things in Illinois, things in Minnesota that they're giving to as well.
Boo.
The Cub Consumer Education and Research Fund. I wonder if that's out of Chicago.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's not tied in with Cub Foods, just in case you were wondering. That's the Citizens Utility Board. So
Citizens Utility Board. Don't we still have the TVA?
Yeah. So this is great. So they got 2 full pages of who just got the energy grants, the climate energy grants, 70 of them.
So that is just
year.
for people that they handpicked.
Yes.
So if they handpick them, what do you need an application for?
Well, I suppose that maybe they pick 5 and award to 3. I don't know. That's a great question.
It's kind of like asking the state for bonding.
It's like that, or it's like, hey, we're allowing 3 of you to come to dinner. I've invited 5 of you. 2 of you are going to have to go home when you show up.
2 of you will give you a McDonald's coupon. You go to the drive-thru when you get home.
But yeah, so and that's just one segment of their who they give to. I mean, in their international grants, they sent out 100 grants for $9.68 million. In education, it's the same thing. So it's crazy to think about. I mean, this is a Minnesota-based foundation. I would imagine that they do take in more than just Minnesota money. But it's not as big as some of the other ones that we're going to talk about. Yeah. But it is a big foundation. There's lots of money that runs through this thing.
Yeah, I tell you what, you want to talk about a foundation that's really gone off track from. This is a big one.
Do we have to?
Yeah. The next 2 we're going to talk about, you're going to find funding almost anything worldwide. One is the Ford Foundation. Now, let me give you a quote here. You want to see how far... Henry Ford is somebody I admire in history. I think Henry Ford did so much for... he had a vision of getting a car down to a price where everybody could afford one.
Mm-hmm.
He did so much to get people to work for. You've heard of people who worked for Ford for 30 years, 40 years. You don't hear that anymore, but they did when he was around.
Right.
And he put his money back into the company. He put his money into his workers. He put his money into his managers, into the assembly line, he really was. Now, there's some things he did I disagree with, obviously, but and he lived in a different time, so his views on race and things. I don't want to get into that crap like we do all the time, this political correctness on people who lived 100 years ago. But the Ford Foundation was created. He was very old when this was created. He died soon after that. He died in 1947. So Henry Ford and his son Edsel Ford, neither one of them had much to do with what the Ford Foundation has become.
Yes.
I want to give you a quote from one of the first chairs of the Henry Ford Foundation. It's Henry Ford's grandson.
Oh. Henry
Ford III, or the second, or the whatever it is. I believe it's Henry Ford the second, but he's the grandson of Henry Ford. He said, the Ford Foundation exists and thrives on the fruits of our economic system. The dividends of a competitive enterprise make it all possible. A significant portion of all the abundance created by U.S. business enables this foundation to carry on their work. In effect, the foundation is a creature of capitalism. He goes on, and that's basically what he said, a creation of capitalism. I want to tell you what's happened since Henry Ford's grandson made that statement in the late 40s. Okay. This is the kinds of things that the Ford Foundation, I don't want to tie Mr. Ford to it.
Yeah. He's already rolling over in his grave. Yeah. Let the man rest in peace.
He might have busted out by now, like
he's spinning
Friday
like a
the
top.
13th. Yeah. Between 2000, first off, they have a lot of ties to communists. Between 2009 and 2012, the Ford Foundation donated $1 million to the Labor Community Strategy Center. They promote a communist ideology. They promote a radical green agenda. They bemoan the fall of the Soviet Union as a very, very bad thing in world history. They're involved in environmental justice, which again is, code words for we're going to revolutionize, take away our car, do all that kind of stuff. They actually are giving money to, this is strange for Ford, giving money to environmental groups that are working to ban automobiles, which is very, very questionable. Same group is trying to do that. They're part of a campaign called No Cars in L.A.
Oh, that'll go over. No cars at all in L.A.
Yeah, restriction. They want to have no fares to ride transit, to ride the bus.
Who's paying for that?
Yeah, well, that just means that
pay for it now.
We're doing the rest of it. The taxpayers are going to be on the hook.
Yeah, I think they do realize L.A. is like super spread out and it's not that dense.
Yeah, I know. Downtown is one thing, but when I think of L.A., I think of the city, the suburbs, kind of like I think of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Everything's not in Minneapolis.
No, absolutely not. And you get out even only as far as like Venice Beach and stuff like that. I mean, it's most people have homes. I mean, there are rental units, but
it's not. Venice Beach to downtown L.A. is not short. It's not like that's a 10-minute walk. That is a long.
It's not that far of a drive.
No, maybe a 30-minute drive, maybe to downtown.
I don't think it's that far.
Well, maybe. I'm thinking of L.A. traffic. But
it depends when you drive, I suppose.
Yeah, I could be right. I haven't been to Venice Beach since 2003 or 4, so I could be wrong.
But still, I mean, that's part of that whole. I mean, you could
LA metropolitan area.
You could make an argument that it goes all the way up to like Malibu.
Yeah, you could. Anaheim, you could say, is part of Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
They awarded $650,000 to the National People's Action. Do you know who that is?
No, but it sounds great, especially when you say it.
They're one of the organizers of the Occupy movement.
Oh, good.
They, in fact, are one of the leaders in that department as well. They have supported open borders through a group called MALDEF. That is that's an alliance fund for I believe for Mexicans.
MALDEF. It needs to be a longer acronym. Word.
Yeah, boy, you really you get it with that there. They have supported defense funds for things like the NAACP. They're very into affirmative action, campaign for fiscal equality, Native American Rights Fund. So they've contributed to a lot of social justice, I guess you'd call it.
Absolutely, and it says that they have. If you click on their About Us page, one of the things that you can read about is their legacy of social justice. They also talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, transforming their building, Good Neighbor Committee. So it is all about, and they make it sound good. It's like people in third world countries, are being persecuted and are being kept down, but they do a lot of work here in this country as well.
Hey, can I ask a question? If all the money we gave to third world countries actually went to these people, why are they still poor?
It's true.
I think the ultimate goal is to keep them poor. I think the ultimate goal is to make them serfs, if you will, because again, these are foundations. They know no borders. They know no limits. Just like another one we're going to get into, the Gates Foundation, which is maybe one of the worst.
Well, there is always the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, you got to love the Clintons. I mean, donating used underwear and writing it off on their taxes. Yeah. You have to love that. But the novelty of I have to give money to these third world countries to prop them up. Well, if that's the case, when do they start to change? How many years? Okay, Jay, I'll take it a step further. Remember the We Are the World movement and all that back in the 80s?
Yeah, I might have that cassette somewhere
to
laying
fight
around.
hunger in Africa.
Yeah.
You know how much money we've given Africa? The world has given Africa. Why is anybody there starving?
Well, and let me tell you, I mean, the people in Africa are super duper entrepreneurial minded. They want to run businesses. They want to be able to make money. They want to be involved in technology. They want to see their countries grow and to be a part of that. I mean, you talk to people in Africa, I mean, this is what they tell you.
Right,
but
the problem is they have to come here to do it.
Their governments are so corrupt that they don't share with the people. Take Equatorial Guinea. It's over on the west coast of Africa. It's a small country. It's like a little bit of the land right on the Atlantic Ocean, and then it has an island as well. It is super rich in oil. All of the proceeds from the oil that they drill goes to the government. But the people are super poor.
But Jay, this is what I'm trying to get at. Where is this money going? That's going to Africa. If I'm cutting a check to the country you're talking to,
right?
Where is that? Who am I writing that out to?
Well, let me give you an example. There's a couple of things. I mean, again, going back to like the Clinton Foundation, you think about like what they did with Haiti and keeping all that money, and some of it never even gets to the country. Okay.
Wow. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Jason?
Some of it never even gets to the country. It's eaten up in administrative costs. It's eaten up in padding the pockets of the and then the Clinton staff.
The Clinton Library's got their massage parlor.
Right. But this is what I learned when I went to Haiti in 2010 after the earthquake.
Oh yeah.
All this money's pouring in all over the place, and none of it's getting to the people. The government was keeping a ton of it. In fact, even machines that could have helped with the excavation process and getting things cleared out, bulldozers, backhoes, things like that, were being held in port until the companies that donated them sent a little money to the president to get them out of port. So you have this is an endemic, and it's what's happening in Africa as well. Unfortunately, that people are not being allowed to participate and prosper, and that the governments are holding these people down by the force of government. And because of our system, thank goodness, it doesn't happen to the same degree here, although that doesn't stop them from trying. But it's why so many people from other countries want to come here and start a business, because they are entrepreneurial minded, and they know that if it's up to them to work hard enough to make a living, that they can do it. You know, and it's terrible, but it's the truth.
Yeah. So, but that gives you an idea of why this isn't changing. I mean,
right.
My entire life I've been hearing about all these poor countries. Oh, they need this and need that. You know what they need?
They do.
They need capitalism, and they need a representative government.
Yes,
that's what they need.
That
they don't.
Go
what we've
ways.
done is turn them into a welfare state. We've turned third world countries into our serfs, if you will, our slaves. That's who they are. You know. They're not free to set up businesses. They're not free to buy and sell goods. And until they are, I don't care how much money we give them, nothing ultimately is going to change. Yeah, they might live longer if they're vaccinated for this and that. If they got clean water. I don't want anybody to go without clean water.
No.
Okay? I mean, why would I want that?
I mean, we've got great charities like Charity Water that do things like that, and that's great. World Vision, they dig wells all the time. Great charities, and there's no reason that we can't help those with our donations to do that. But when they run through these foundations, these charities aren't getting the money they need to be getting.
Brutal.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sad. I think these, again, it's the race. I mean, this is going to sound corny, but it's the race for world domination. I mean, ultimately, these charities or countries or foundations, I should say, are really working hand in hand to keep these people down, keep these people where they are. That's really what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that, and if people are going to stand there and give millions of dollars to this stuff, what do you do to counteract it?
Yeah.
It certainly means our government doesn't have to do it anymore. That's
right.
One thing that could stop. Or if we're going to aid a country, we have to insist that the money go where we say it's going to go, or we're not going to give it anymore.
Right.
And for some reason, we don't have a government with the guts to do that.
No, we don't. You said there was another foundation, the Gates Foundation, right, that is doing even worse things than the Ford Foundation, if that's possible. I
think who they give money to is really scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what they stand for. Bill Gates is the guy that I really am concerned about his influence. Bill Gates has more power than any president, any dictator of a country, anything like that, I think. First off, I think he supports eugenics.
Right.
I mean, however you define that. But he's talked about reducing the world's population.
Yeah.
That we have to do that. In fact, I have a quote from Bill Gates. In fact, he's part of the Bilderberg Group, which is another group
that
meeting.
Does who knows what.
Does who knows what. And it might be time for our media to maybe do their jobs for once. The world has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to 9 billion. Now, if we really do a great job on new vaccinations, healthcare, reproductive health services, which means abortion, he doesn't say that, we could lower that by perhaps 15%.
So by giving people vaccinations to live longer without dying from disease, we can reduce the world's population. Is that how I heard you?
Well, that's his quote.
So let me get this straight. We give them vaccinations that are supposed to prolong life.
Well,
and
I think
we reduce the world's population.
I think his big thing is pollution control. I think that's a big thing that
maybe we could start with Microsoft.
Well, there's a group, and I don't know if Gates gives money to it. There's a group out there, an NGO called Zero Population Growth.
Yep.
They were part of the Bill Clinton's Council on Sustainability.
Yes, they were.
Otherwise known as Agenda 21, which he promoted in 1993. They did a report in 1996. But Zero Population Growth was their goal is to basically make abortions free and to promote abortion so that we control the world's population. So it's kind of
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of them out there that have actually advocated for reducing the world's population significantly. That they see people as a plague upon the earth that have done harm to it, that have eradicated other species of animals, and as such, our numbers need to be depleted or almost eliminated in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, and they've given the amount of money that they give, just as an example, okay, their total endowment is $44.3 billion. Bill Gates himself has financed $28 billion of this. Now you might just to put that in some sort of perspective, okay? The government of Minnesota doesn't spend $28 billion in a year.
Right.
I mean, stop and think about that.
Yeah.
$28 billion is not spent in an entire year by the government of Minnesota.
We could have the 51st state of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
They've got a lot of states, really, to be honest with you.
Right.
Just an example of some of the places they give: World Health Organization, a lot of globalist stuff, UNICEF, the UN Foundation, Population Services International. More on them in a minute, but they give to Cornell and Johns Hopkins, I think, for a lot of research, things like that. They're big backers of Common Core in education and kind of making this one-size-fits-all. There's a lot of rumors. It's hard to separate fact from truth. Gates doesn't talk to the public much, so it's sort of difficult to get a handle on where this money is going. But Population Services International targets. They're one of these NGOs, nonprofits targeting childhood survival, HIV, reproductive health, which of course means abortion. They are studying behavior change communications, ultimately claim they want to live healthier lives, but they're all tied up with something called the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, which is basically a coalition of NGOs that kind of advocate together for worldwide this and that. So, there's a tremendous amount of money flowing through these. They've spent money on presidential campaigns, so on and so forth. So,
and just the size of their office buildings. And they have offices in Washington, D.C., in London. They have offices in the Middle East, in North Africa, in India, in China, and none of them are small.
Well, of course not.
Yeah.
You got the Gates money there. Why would it be small?
Right. Absolutely. So it's it's really pervasive. It's everywhere. And they're giving billions of dollars, like you said, every year to these NGOs and charities, quote unquote, that most of us that listen to this podcast are not going to agree with the philosophies of these groups that are getting this money.
Right. And we're, we just don't have much choice. They can give to whatever they want to. But we need to be aware of, where this is going and what it's funding. In fact, Bill Gates, along with Warren Buffett, took what's called the Giving Pledge, which is contribute half of their money to philanthropy. I think Andrew Carnegie might have started. He gave a lot of his wealth away before he died. So it's, so this is not going to get smaller.
No.
By any means. And again, we're giving you a 30,000-foot view of this, but just to show you this money at work, I looked up the Green Step program here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
greenstep.pca.state.mn.us and looked at their partner organizations. Okay. I also did this with the Complete Streets Coalition.
Yeah.
Just to show how organizations like this are affecting us. I'll give you an example here. Smart Growth America.
Yeah.
I found this on the Complete Streets page, but this is the partners. The National Complete Streets Coalition is a broad collection of advocates and transportation professionals working to enact complete streets across the country. Now, here are Complete Streets benefactors, the AARP. American Public Transportation Association. They have platinum members, which include America Walks, that includes Smart Growth America, include Voices for Healthy Kids, Washington State Department of Transportation, City of Orlando Department of Transportation, National Association of City Transportation. They have partners like law firms, Alta Planning and Design, Gresham Smith and Partners. They have stuff I've never heard of. They have nonprofits, Walk Long Beach, Trust for America's Health, Smart Growth Tulsa. I wonder if Tulsa residents know that. Green Roads Foundation.
Yeah.
I mean, which are, they're smaller things, but I'm just naming a handful.
Right. Well, and with Tulsa, I mean, that's just a nonprofit partner. I don't know if they're actually giving money, but as far as like groups that actually give money, I mean, you have the Orlando, where'd it go? The City of Orlando Transportation Department. So your tax money, if you live in Orlando, is going to Smart Growth America.
Yeah, and by the way, to be a platinum member, you have to make at least a $6,500 contribution.
Yeah.
Well, it's not making a contribution of $50.
Right.
Okay, you're making that's not nothing. I mean, Bill Clinton used to say, how many children can we feed with that? How many children can we feed with all that money?
Contribution that size might get you into the League of Minnesota Cities.
Yeah, I don't even know about that. That's questionable. But Green Step has got their folks too. I mean,
speaking of League of Minnesota Cities,
they're there. Minnesota Department of Commerce. Remember, that's your tax dollars. Minnesota Environmental Quality Board, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Clean Energy Resource Team, Great Plains Institute, Urban Land Institute of Minnesota. Oh, and the mayor of Falcon Heights is the head of that. Oh boy, no conflict of interest there.
Nope.
Preservation Alliance of Minnesota, Metropolitan Council. Oh, the McKnight Foundation. Oh, gee. And, of course, there's no record of what they give.
No.
I mean, I don't know. Are they bankrolling this whole thing? I mean,
They have enough money. They could. All those shiny little 2-page inserts you get in your council packets that tell you
3M
how
could be
wonderful they are.
3M could be making those.
Oh, that's true. That could come right out of 3M. Who knows?
They're also supported by a national network of statewide local sustainability organizations.
Right.
Which is a million different things.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Currently, there are 13 statewide municipality sustainable programs across the U.S. If you look at the map, it's largely blue states, although Florida has one. Florida Green Building Association. It's mostly, here are the states. I'll just run through them quick.
Okay.
California, Connecticut, Florida, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, which has 2, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin. California has Green Cities, California. We have Sustainable Connecticut, Sustainable Maryland, Michigan Green Communities. So even Green Step is tied into a nationwide movement to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, it is.
So follow the money. Again, we follow the money.
I mean, it's like we've always said, this is a local cap and trade club. They couldn't get cap and trade passed at the national level. And so here we are with all these local clubs at the state level.
But understand, cap and trade is one aspect of this.
Oh, right. There's more to it than that.
I mean, you are right. Capping carbon is part of the goal here.
Right.
But that's one
right
goal of many. It is a local cap and trade. Getting people to do it voluntarily is also a misnomer when you bring government in. It's you do it, or there's consequences if you don't.
Yep, we don't let you build your building. We don't issue permits.
We don't give you grant money, X, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if at some point this is factored into municipal street aid. This is factored into local government aid. This is factored into bonding with building standards and all that. It would not surprise me if at some point, it may not be this year or next year, that how green your city is going to determine a whole lot more than a handful of grant money.
Well, I can tell you this. I mean, every city in Minnesota could be at step 5, and they still would not be happy with the level of emissions. So where do you go from there? You have to have room to create a more stringent level of compliance. So that is exactly the direction that you go, is that, you as a city are going to have to start monitoring who emits what and curtailing people's freedom when they don't want to comply with the standards that you've put out there.
Well, what you have to do is incrementally do it. I think that's what you're saying. I think it starts with spending tax dollars, city fleets, things like that.
Right.
We've seen this in Minneapolis. Every car in Minneapolis driven looks like it came from The Price is Right.
Right.
The little love bug or whatever it is, and the only electric cars on the streets are ones that government owns. So it's changing that. Then it becomes you mold the young people.
Right.
So when they're older and they become the decision makers, there's this guilt on them, this guilt that they're destroying the planet if they don't buy an electric car. This is the long-term goal here. That, we're having too many kids. The world's too populated.
Right.
We have to do something. We need a China-like policy to stop that. So there's a long-term goal into that, I think, in
absolutely
further than they're even going.
Absolutely. And we are just scratching the surface here. I mean, there's a 30,000-foot view where we can't get into all of the groups that these organizations support. We're not even getting into all the groups. I mean, we mentioned the Clinton Foundation, but didn't get into it. The Rockefeller Foundation is another one, and they give to like SEIU, and they give to the Tides Foundation, and they give to, Center for American Progress. I mean, they gave them $3.8 million just since 2009 to 2012.
Right, that's John Podesta's group, I think. That was the Clinton. You talk about a conflict of interest. I mean, he was basically Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I tell you what, and I'll say something too. I'll say one more group that you really need to watch out for is the Bush Foundation. I mean, I hate to say that, but they're not as bad, obviously, but they give money to a lot of worldwide. The Bushes, whatever you want to say,
a little progressive.
Whatever you want to say about them, they're globalists. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, they're globalists. Yeah. Whether they're better or worse or more conservative, certainly they are, but as individuals.
Right.
But what the foundation does is something different.
Right. And they don't manage the day-to-day of the foundations. They have a board of directors. Now, in a case, of some of these, they may, like at the Clintons, they may be, the chair of the organization or whatever and receive direction from them. But, you've got a whole board of people that are making decisions. So it's... there are so many groups like this, and these are some of the big ones, and there's a lot of smaller ones that both receive money from these bigger foundations, receive private donations, things like Smart Growth for America, things that further the initiatives of people who want nothing but electric vehicles, getting vehicles totally out of the way for a car-free society, mixed-use development, trains, all of it.
It's coming. No matter what, it's coming.
Yep, and that's why it seems like these people are louder than us. That's why it seems like these people are everywhere. And that's why it seems like we're so far behind the 8 ball, because they've been able to take the money from rich people who donate to them, whether that is
under
with
the
best of intentions or not.
Under the guise of something else, possibly, too.
Right. And then they turn around and do this. So let me say this. If you believe what we believe, and you listen to this podcast, and you ever have given money to any of these Ford Foundation, McKnight, any of it, stop. Stop. You cannot even
cut off the money. That's the first way to start.
Even if your goal is to keep Big Bird on the air, you can give money directly to PBS, okay? You do not have to give to the McKnight Foundation to do that, because you cannot control what they do with your money.
Right.
You give money to them, and they can spend it on anything they want.
Believe it or not, and it's hard to believe, PBS has more accountability than the McKnight Foundation. That's hard to believe, but it's true.
So, so if you're giving money to one of these organizations, stop. We need to redirect our efforts to put people into office locally that are and this is the key here. We need people locally who are going to stand up to these foundations. That's how we combat this. I mean, you can have the McKnight Foundation give $12 gazillion to something, but if you have principled people in office that are willing to stand against it, there's really nothing that they can do.
Yeah, I mean, they're there to do what they're doing. They know they have influence. They know they can influence people. And they succeed in doing so.
Put people in office who refuse to be bought off, who refuse to go after the free money, who don't want the grants. We talk about all the time, Andrew, that, we're, as city staff, we're taught to go find the grants. Well, this is where they get the grants from.
Well, and again, it's the city councils that are supposed to make policy. It's them that are supposed to say, no, we don't want the grants for this. We're not interested in doing that.
Right.
So, and I'll tell you what, I'll make even a bigger point as we wrap up here, but the city councils are the first step to what? Going higher and going higher and going higher. And eventually you take over everything.
They can't get their stuff in at the state level right now or at the federal level, so you buy off the city councils. And as those people climb the ranks, you've already got them in your pocket when you want to implement something at a county, state, or federal level.
Yeah, so that's what's happening. Hello, Mayor of St. Louis Park. That's what's going on. We all know he's running for something. I'm going to win my bet. Within 3 years, he's runs for something else.
Oh, my goodness.
Sure, they'd bankroll him in a second.
Oh, so we need people to run for these offices, starting now in 2018. But even if you're not ready, you don't think you're ready, there are enough of us that can get involved in advisory commissions at the city level to advise city councils not to take the grants, not to go in that direction. That is our first step. Fill up these advisory councils and then run for city council once you get a resume, once you get things together and you find out how exciting it is, Yes.
And I just want to say, I got sunglasses on now. You want to know why?
Why?
I watched an episode of WKRP.
Oh, boy.
The others. I'm Johnny Fever here as we wrap up.
Is that what that is?
That's right. I tried to hit on Lonnie Anderson. She wouldn't buy it. So that's the episode I saw. So.
Oh, boy.
Although we're not in Cincinnati.
No, he's got his sunglasses on because he's already got 1 foot out the door. People, don't let him snow you.
What?
All right.
1 foot out the door. Actually, both are out the door. I'm long enough to do this show and leave at the same time.
Yeah. Is that how it is? Oh, boy. So we need you. Contact us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. We will help you learn how to put an action plan together for your community to fill up those advisory councils, to run for city council, county board, school board, and also
dog catcher,
whatever. Yeah, watershed, whatever. We'll help you figure it out so that you can begin to put together a team that will stand. We will come out to your community. We can talk to your community and get them excited excited because this is very winnable. We've seen the numbers, and it doesn't matter what part of Minnesota you're in, minus Minneapolis and St. Paul and Duluth, because you guys are nuts. Oh, well, some of you are very sane, but I don't know how you stay there.
I don't know either.
I'm telling you. All right. Anyways, get a hold of us. We'll come on out. Look us up. We're all over social media. COMM Solutions MN. You can find us all over the place. Share the podcast and all that. We would love it if you would do that. Your feedback means the world to us. So just keep on that and keep spreading the word. It's not for our sake, it's for your sake, Minnesota, that you do this, because people need to hear the story. All right? So we're going to go away for a week, do some more research, go speak to some more groups somewhere out there. We've got some good stuff planned. You'll see us coming around. So with that, Minnesota, we love you, and it's your turn to get to work.
If I get too caught up